Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
We now want to welcome to our TV and radio audiences worldwide Amazon's president and CEO, Andy Jassy. Great to have you in New York.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Back home where you grew up.
That's right.
And you were unveiling generative AI-infused Alexa Plus. How is this going to really, excite your customer base? What are you most excited for it?
Well, Alexa's been around for 10 years. We have 600 million devices in customers' homes and offices. And Alexa Plus is our next generation Alexa personal assistant. And she's meaningfully smarter and more capable and useful than her prior self. You can do all the things that you used to do, but every single one of those functions is better. And I can give you just an example. There are so many examples, but if you have smart home controls with Alexa, now you can say, hey, Alexa, I have guests coming over at 7 p.m. Could you raise the drapes? Could you raise the temperature by 5 degrees, turn on the porch lights and the driveway lights, and put on mellow dinner music in the dining room?
Mellow music? You're not a guy who listens to mellow music.
Me, I'd choose the Foo Fighters, but most people will choose mellow dining music. But you can do that all verbally and simply using conversational language like that. You don't need an app. It just happens. And so Alexa Plus, with what we've just announced and what we're launching, it really is, there have been a lot of chatbots around that are good at answering questions, but they don't take actions. Alexa Plus is really, Alexa is going to be the first one that not only is highly intelligent to answer various questions, but she can do so many things for you. She can play music and play video and control your smart home and make reservations for you and hire people to fix your oven. I mean, it really is the first big, large-scale practical use of generative AI that consumers are going to be able to see and use naturally.
I can see how you're going to obsess over it, whether it's ordering the latest buffalo wings here in New York and seeing where the best space is to do that. But how are your stakeholders of shareholder base going to obsess about this?
About? Well,
generative AI in Alexa Plus, how is that adding value for them?
Well, I think if you think about what Alexa allows customers to do, it makes shopping more easy because it's so much more intuitive now to buy products. It makes enjoying music easier. It makes enjoying video and streaming media better. It allows you to control your smart home in a different way. So every single one of our customer experiences gets better with Alexa Plus. And then, of course, Alexa has its own business model. We have a brand new lineup of devices that are coming in the fall that are beautiful, that I think people are going to really like. We have opportunities to surface new products and advertising in various interfaces like our mobile and our desktop interface that's coming in Alexa. And then we have subscriptions. And so I think there's a sustainable business model there as well.
Talk to me about the subscriptions, because you're getting it free if you've got Prime. I get a lot with Prime now. Are you able to increase the prices there, do you think?
Of Prime? Well, Prime is an incredible value. If you think about getting free shipping on 300 million plus items. When we launched Prime, it was free shipping on about 1 million items. Today it's 300 million items. And most of the time you're getting your products now inside of a day. And so, between that and what you get with Prime Video and Prime Music and the grocery subscription and, our unique selling events, Prime's an incredible value. So
you could increase it?
To add on top of it, Alexa Plus, it's just great value. So we don't have any plan right now, but it's I do think Prime's an unusual value, and that's why people use it so expansively.
And to increase that use has been this invention, this innovation of generative AI, and that costs money. And you've actually just took to the stage yesterday to say, out of all companies, you are spending the most on AI. How much are you spending on AI?
Well, I think we don't disclose the exact amount, but we're spending a pretty significant amount of CapEx, and the lion's share of it is on generative AI. We've said in our AWS business, even though generative AI for us is a many billion-dollar a year business and growing triple-digit percentages year over year, that if we had even more capacity, we could use it and monetize it. And we have this really interesting and very fortunate flywheel in AI inside of Amazon, which is, if your mission is to make customers' lives easier and better every day, which it is for us, and if you believe that all the customer experiences we know of today are going to be reinvented through generative AI, which we also believe. If you believe those two things, you're going to be building a lot of generative AI apps. If you build a lot of generative AI apps, by the way, other companies are too, on top of AWS, which is the leading technology infrastructure platform. So if there are a lot of generative AI apps being built on top of you, you can't help but get a lot of feedback from people on how they want those building blocks that create generative AI to be better. And if you're willing to invest in those building blocks, which we are, as you know, with our own chips, with Trainium, and with our own frontier model, with Amazon Nova, and model building services, and SageMaker AI, and Bedrock, if you're willing to invest in those building blocks, and you're getting a lot of feedback, they get better much more quickly, which can't help but make it easier and quicker for people to build generative AI applications, which means you get more running on the platform. So that flywheel is very unique for Amazon.
The lion's share, though, you did say basically $100 billion run rate for CapEx expenditure. Can you give us even like a percentage breakdown of how much that goes to distribution, logistics, and how much goes to AI?
Well, lion's share is,
More than
tell you
50%?
most of it. Most of it. The lion's share is more than 50%. Yes.
Is it more than 80%?
We're playing the warmer and colder game.
Yes, exactly. I love a game. But talk to us about that capacity that you talked about.
Yeah.
AWS could grow even faster if you had all the chips that you needed, all the power you needed, the motherboards you needed. How much faster could AWS grow?
It's hard to put an exact percentage, but I do think it could be growing faster. I mean, I'm confident it could be growing faster. And, there is, for a long time, there still aren't as many chips as we all want. We have, we're fortunate in that we're very big partners with NVIDIA, but then we also have our own custom AI silicon in Trainium 2, which we just released at reInvent, which is 30 to 40% more price performant than the GPU-powered instances, which is a big deal at scale if you're doing generative AI on the inference side. So we have maybe more chips than some others might have access to, but we still don't have enough. And then there just is not enough power in the world right now, and we're all working really hard on that. I expect that to relieve some the second half of this year, but right now, and the world can change, but right now we have just insatiable demand.
We heard amazing demand coming from Jensen Huang, who had his numbers out yesterday in NVIDIA. Was there a limitation on the NVIDIA chips in particular that pulled back capacity? And at what point do you think you can depend even more on your own in-house built chips to offset any of that?
Well, I would say, there's a lot of demand for generative AI right now. People are very excited about it. I think that all the different providers of chips have been constrained to some extent. I think some of the new generations maybe have gone through different evolutions and when they're going to be released, maybe a little later than people thought. There are some components like motherboards and things like that we all use that particular ones are in shorter supply than others. So, I do think there are some supply chain issues which I expect to get better. People are very excited about Trainium 2, to your question, and whether we could see more demand there. And we have gone back at least a couple occasions to make more Trainium 2 than we'd intended because we have so much demand. So I expect that we'll have customers for as long as I can foresee wanting to run compute on instances that have NVIDIA chips, but I think a lot of the demand will also be served by Trainium.
The customers that you couldn't serve because of the limited capacity, is it that you just had to pull it back from everyone a little bit more generally, or who lost out here, do you think?
It's always a combination. There's for people that just have a very small amount of accelerators that they need, they don't usually have a problem. We have something called capacity blocks, which it's kind of like an on-demand way to use accelerators and generative AI chips, and that continues to grow. It's really the folks who have built, have an idea for a new application, but they need a lot of chips, where if we don't have the capacity, we have to give them what we can give them and give it to them as fast as we can and push our partners to get it in sooner. And they can't get their initiatives done as quickly as they want to if the capacity isn't there.
Anthropic's had all the capacity it needs? You've got a close relationship?
Yeah, we have a very close partnership with Anthropic. We have this project called Project Rainier with them. They're building their next model, their next version of their frontier model on top of Trainium 2 and our custom AI silicon. They're going to use over 400,000 Trainium 2 chips. And so, yes, they have They have capacity. They're ramping up, and we're excited about that partnership and what they're building.
You mentioned the power side.
Yeah.
How much is that something you're talking to the administration about? How much is the administration supportive of the build-out that you need to do?
We have been talking to administration, multiple administrations in this country over the years, as well as in other countries as well. And I think the power shortage really snuck up on people, really right after the pandemic. And I would say that the current administration is very receptive to it. They understand the constraints it's having on the economy right now and are convicted about solving it.
What about the restrictions around chips? And what's interesting is Microsoft just called on the administration today to say this limitation on chip access for some of our close allies around the world is going to limit our global business. You are a global business. Is that
Yes.
something you're worried about?
And we are. I think that you're really talking about that AI Diffusion Act, I think, and I'm going to be curious to see where that goes. I mean, it was enacted pretty quickly at the very end of the last administration. I don't know how this administration feels about it, but I would say that we share the concern that it has limitations on certain countries who are natural allies of the U.S., who just to be able to do their business and those companies to be able to get done what they want to get done on top of these technology infrastructure platforms like AWS, they're going to need more chips. And so I think if we don't do it, we're going to basically give up that business and those relationships to other countries who can provide those chips. And I think we're better off being partners with them.
Is it a risk to AWS?
It's not so much a risk. I mean, in the scheme of things, it's not a big swinger, but I also think that there are so many countries who are in the early stages of their economic development who both really need access to the most cutting-edge, sophisticated technology to build the right customer experiences, and that could be big geographic markets for companies like ours and lots of other technology companies, where I think it would be a shame to limit them and to limit the companies.
With the AI diffusion rules that was brought in very swiftly by the Biden administration, all of this is in the context of US versus China and not wanting to get the most sophisticated equipment and chip and technology into China. What rate for us, for a moment, the administration, and whether it's been net positive or negative for your business when it comes to China, de minimis, for example, the fact that Chinese competitors, if we call them that, Shein and the like, are going to have to pay more to get goods into the country. Does that help or hinder you?
Well, I would say, on de minimis specifically, we have a certain number of items that are shipped in that way as well for things like Haul, which is our new low price offering. We maybe have less of it than some other companies like the ones that you mentioned. But I think it's early in this administration, but what I would say is that it is encouraging to us that we have an administration that wants to hear from business. I would say that we've been a business through 6 administrations. Every single one of them, our primary focus is to take care of customers, but we try to build a productive relationship with the administration because we want to help the country. And I would say that some administrations are more receptive to it than others, but this administration cares about what business thinks. And I've always been surprised that it isn't obvious that the best economic results for a country are going to be when the public and the private sector collaborate. And I don't expect the government to kowtow to what companies want, but they should get their feedback and their input because they're going to make policies better together if they collaborate. And I'm encouraged early on that this administration wants to talk to businesses.
Are you taking calls personally?
I take calls. We talk to, same thing with all the administrations. We talk to people in the administration. We share what's working for us, what's not working for us, concerns that we have. As I said, some administrations care more about our feedback than others.
Has Trump cared about yours? Have you spoken to the President?
I have spoken to the President. Look, as I said, this administration has been pretty busy the first month. But I am encouraged that they are having conversations with businesses and they do care about our feedback. And we'll see what happens. But it starts with a dialogue. You have to have a dialogue to have any kind of relationship.
And they care about AI infrastructure. Just take Stargate. Are we going to hear more from you on how much you're investing here in the United States on the AI infrastructure build out as well?
Well, as we talked about earlier, where we said it was directionally right in terms of the run rate on our capex. We're spending a lot on AI infrastructure, and the lion's share of it is not just on AI, but also in this country, in the U.S. We spend elsewhere because we have a global business. We have customers everywhere. We have customers in a couple hundred countries, but we have a pretty substantial investment that I don't expect to attenuate soon.
If only we could get a number. I'm interested in something that perhaps is going to feel a more sensitive topic. And it comes around perhaps some words that were missing in your annual report this year, which were diversity and inclusion. I put this in the context of the administration as it stands, because I know that Amazon strives to be the Earth's best employer. And I'm just wondering how your employees react to perhaps the lack of certain words now involved, and whether or not programs might be forced to change or not.
Yeah. Well, what I would tell you, just at a high level, if you serve as many customers as we do in as many diverse groups as we do and we intend to moving forward, you have to have a diverse team to be able to build products that work for everybody. And that has always been our intention. It continues to be our intention. I think that there were so many programs that we launched and other companies launched in the pandemic. And as you probably have seen over the last 3 years, we have gone through very thoroughly every single one of our business areas. And the programs that we had conviction about, we doubled down on. And the programs that we don't have conviction about, we streamlined and we stopped doing. And so we did the same thing in looking at all of our programs on diversity. And, we have some programs that we have doubled down on. A good example is our career choice inside our fulfillment network. Our fulfillment center teammates are able to get an advanced education for free on us to advance their career and their own development. And that has been very, very successful and very meaningful. And so we doubled down on a program like that. There are other programs that really just haven't been that successful and haven't moved the needle much, and those we just moved away from. But we have a diverse group. We're trying to continue to build out a diverse group, and that won't change.
And you can still use that word. Ultimately, you're not having to reframe it.
And that is, look, you can call it, lots of people call it lots of different things, but we have a giant customer base of every imaginable group of people where we want builders who can build for them.
Culture is key.
Yeah.
And you just talked about how you're doing more with less. It's always a focus on frugality. That's in your very principles. That's something you've been doing at the employee base as well. You made it very clear that they were going to be reducing layers. How is that going?
Yeah, it's going well. Look, if you have a company where the culture is an important ingredient in your success, which has absolutely been true for Amazon, it's not your birthright to keep having a strong culture, especially as you grow the number of people, the number of businesses you're in, the geographies that you're in. And so you have to work at it all the time. And for us, there were two areas when we looked at it as a leadership team last year that we wanted to strengthen. One was we have always hired really strong owners, smart, ambitious, strong owners who get to own the lion's share of, in this case, I would say 90+% of the decisions. And they, as you add a lot of people, you end up with a lot of middle managers, and those middle managers, all well-intended, want to put their fingerprint on everything. So you end up with these people being in the pre-meeting for the pre-meeting for the pre-meeting for the decision meeting, and not always making recommendations and owning things the way we want that type of ownership. So we took a goal collectively to increase the ratio of individual contributors to managers by over 15% as a company by the end of this quarter. We've made very good progress in that. We've beat that already. And it's going to allow us, for the people that are doing the work, they're going to have more ownership and they're going to be able to move more quickly. And then I think the other thing we saw was that if you're a culture that invents a lot and collaborates a lot like we do, if you don't have people in the office together doing that invention, it's just meaningfully worse. And you don't invent the same way, you don't collaborate the same way, you don't connect with each other the same way, you don't learn the culture the same way. And so having people back in the office together more frequently, we felt very strongly about. It's going to be better for customers in the business.
Let's talk about that invention and that collaboration. We've got a new quantum chip, Ocelot, love the name. What does that mean for you to have this more efficient chip at this exact moment? Yeah. Will we start seeing it be practically useful soon?
Well, quantum computing is very high potential. It has the chance to solve some very computationally intense problems, and I still think it's realistically a few years away from having a real shot at solving those problems, but you have to solve a bunch of these challenges that relate to quantum computing along the way, and one of them really is around error correction on the qubits, and that's what Oscillate does. It's a very unique, inventive way to do error correction on the qubits that makes a meaningful difference, and we're excited about that milestone. You can't get to something that has real impact unless you get those milestones done along the way, and you invent along the way, and that's just another example of invention.
Well, I feel the learning of how generative AI suddenly became not just in the business parlay, but suddenly everyone was discussing it. I think people are aware quantum could do the same thing. So when you hear people debating between 2 decades or 5 years, where do you sit on the grander scope of that?
Gosh, I don't know for sure. I would say I'm hopeful that it's more in the 5-ish year range than it is the 20-year range. All these things that are successful are 7, 10, 20-year overnight successes. It wasn't like, if you look at generative AI, it's just kind of another evolution of AI, but we've been working on AI for 50 some odd years. I mean, and then it just, boom, it happened, and it really shocked us when it actually was more accessible and worked. And I think the same thing could happen with quantum computing, which is, takes a long time, and then all of a sudden, it's functional and solves problems that you couldn't solve easily or cost effectively before. It just feels like it happened overnight. But quantum computing we've been working on now for 10 plus years.
And then the euphoria comes. And then people try to make head or tail of how long that euphoria lasts. Going back to the investment that you make, and particularly in generative AI, do you think it's going to be peak year for generative AI in terms of that investment that Amazon makes?
I don't know. It's funny. I have this feeling that you're going to end up with some people that feel a little disillusioned about generative AI because the investment, are you getting the commensurate return? It's still very early. You have so many companies that are really doing pilots right now of their generative AI applications. And you already see a little bit of it. But I think that the smart companies are going to figure out which are the initiatives that can really change their customer experience in their businesses and keep investing in generative AI. And the slower companies are going to wait to see if it's safe to go outside, and they'll be behind by 2 or 3 years, maybe more, because the reality is, even more so than software development, generative AI is very iterative. It's not, in software development, you can get on a whiteboard with a team of architects and design something, and maybe it doesn't work exactly as you designed it, but largely. Yeah. Whereas in generative AI, the models, they get better at kind of disproportionate rates. Sometimes,
scaling law? Have we got a new scaling law?
Yeah, I think that a lot of times when you're building models and the model gets so much better, and you talk to the scientists on the team, they just can't believe how much better it got because the model is learning itself. And so I think that if you actually aren't investing in generative AI, you're going to be behind by even the amount of time that you waited, because there are so many lessons you get from iterating and building applications today.
And you want to be the supermarket of AI, it feels like, agnostic to the models, as it is with Amazon Alexa Plus?
Well, look, the truth is, what we care most about in all our businesses, but as it relates to AWS and AI, we want our customers to be able to change their customer experiences and improve their businesses so they can last over a long period of time successfully. And if we do right by our customers and take the long-term approach we do, and they're able to run their applications successfully on top of our technology infrastructure services, then they're successful and we ride along with them. And so, we in all these areas, we have services we build ourselves. In the models area, we have Amazon Nova, which people are really excited about because it's got comparable intelligence to the leading models in the world, but it's meaningfully less expensive and lower latency. But if customers prefer to run other models, we have a huge partnership with Anthropic and with Llama and
have DeepSeek.
Mistral, DeepSeek. I mean, we have the largest collection of leading foundation models in the world. And if customers are having success with those, then we're happy. And the truth is, if you build a lot of generative AI applications, people don't realize this, you use multiple model types, often in the same application. application. Even Alexa Plus, as we talked about, uses multiple foundation models. And so we want people to use the right model for their applications, and then we make it easy for them to switch between them and run it easily and successfully on AWS.
Andy Jassy, perfect place to leave it. Start with Alexa Plus, end on Alexa Plus, and all the generative AI that comes with it. We thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Andy Jassy, President and CEO of Amazon.